It's 18 minutes past 6. I want to talk about a behaviour. I want to talk about the things we do, the things we don't do, and the things we should do, and why we do all those things. That's why it's very exciting to introduce Total BS.
What to do. We don't want nobody pushing us around.
And joining me in the studio today from BehaviourWorks Australia at the Monash Sustainability Institute, it is Peter Bragg and Jeff Payne. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Sammy.
Good morning, Sammy J. It's a very rock and roll introduction.
Fantastic
Really
intro.
gets people woken up.
Really
So we listen to that sort of music all the time in the office, don't we, Jeff?
All the time.
And Jeff, I spoke to you not too long ago. We had a little chat about your thespian life,
Yes.
life of an actor, and indeed Ramsay Street, of which you have been a notable resident member and troublemaker, has just come to an end, all wrapped up now?
It has finished on Friday. There were tears and hugs, and we did have to do some acting in the middle of it. I had to start the cameras up and shoot some stuff as well.
Jeff, did they put some hard rubbish out?
They did not, well, unless me, I would consider that hard rubbish.
But all the sets and stuff, they're throwing out the costumes, the sets.
I have no clue what is happening to that sort of stuff, but I would imagine there's a lot of polystyrene bricks that are going to be chopped up and handed out.
Oh, look at this. Ruining the magic already. Are you both fans of hard rubbish?
Oh, yeah, big time. And I was going to say, it's sort of connected with what we're talking about. I had a street in Coburg, a lady in the street who did not want to put anything out, and she just collected hard rubbish. And one year, she asked me to take the bed head that I'd put out as hard rubbish to keep for her.
What?
She outsourced the hard rubbish storage to me.
You can't do that.
You can. I strapped it to my shed roof for 2 more years. And it's like, I don't know what it's doing there, but...
oh, my gosh. Okay.
She changed my behaviour.
Well,
He knew
what a
it was
perfect
wrong
springboard.
too, Sammy. He knew it was wrong. But just on hard rubbish, I've got hard rubbish envy because we've got the bookable hard rubbish.
Yeah.
Oh, are you
So
in,
they
are you
don't
in the
have
city
the
of Yarra?
street. No, well, we're in the city of Whitehorse, and you have to get a special sticker from the council, so you don't have a street to go down anymore.
Better for the environment.
It's like they've killed a festival by doing it.
Totally. Okay, let's talk behaviour. Peter, what's BehaviourWorks Australia? What do you do there?
So we're an applied behaviour change research unit. We're Australia's largest, and we work with government and industry on behaviour change challenges that they face.
Behaviour change is one of those sort of corporate buzzwords, though, isn't it? What does that mean?
Well, there's a science behind it.
Yeah.
So there's probably 50 years of psychology and 300 years of philosophy behind it. So when you unpack it and get under the hood, it's actually pretty fascinating.
Well, let's do it today. In the time we have, I want to ask you both the question, why do we do things that we know aren't good for us? Why do we do things that we know we shouldn't? We still do them. Haven't humans evolved now to the point where they just wouldn't do the things they know they shouldn't?
There'd be no need for gyms if people knew, right?
And all the prisons would be empty.
Yeah, wouldn't they? And there'd be no donut shops either. If we knew that we didn't have to eat that sort of food, why would we buy donuts? It's because we love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible assumption that people have. And, I'm a parent, you're a parent. Mm-hmm. You assume, if you tell your kids not to do something, they'll have the knowledge and they won't do it. And yet we know that's not true.
I found if you tell them about 3,000 times...
Yep, that's the trick.
Yeah, I think that's the...
Jeff, how many times have I told you to sit up straight?
Well, I'm standing right now, so...
Yeah, well...
I get it.
In the office.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so what is it? What is it that can stop us from listening to a voice of reason or respecting knowledge that we actually do have?
Well, the key assumption around that you need to unpack is that knowledge is the only thing that dictates our behaviour. And we know that that's not true. We know that there are numerous influences on our behaviour. There's our peers, there's the environment we're in.
There's our identity. I'm not the guy that sits up straight. I'm the sloucher.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I'd say to
I'm
Jeff,
a troublemaker.
Yeah.
there's a sign in the tea room at BehaviourWorks that says, please clean up your cups when you're finished.
Yeah.
I say to Jeff, you're going to clean up that
I'm a
cup?"
desperado. I'm not the cup cleaner.
He's like, yeah.
You're the thespian.
Yes.
You're the fun guy.
That's right. I don't clean cups.
What other things influence us? It's with emotions, isn't it? Physical needs.
Peers. Do we
Yep.
fit in with the group? Do we agree with things that we don't really agree with? Do we sort of barrack for teams that we may not actually support?
Just
Why
because
not?
we're pressured into it.
Peer
Pressure
pressure.
into it.
Emotions are a big one, actually. So, have you ever yelled at your kids to be quiet?
Of course.
Yeah,
In
and we
various
know
forms.
it's wrong to yell, but the emotions overtake us.
But I mean, also have kids sometimes learn that if daddy or mum raises their voice when it rarely happens, they know things are serious.
Well,
Yes.
no, Jeff told me he knew things were serious when his mum used his middle name.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's when you know you're
She
in
had two
big
stages.
trouble.
One was Jeffrey, like if she
Yeah,
moved to
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, that's warning one. It was if Jeffrey Walter, bang.
Oh.
Yeah, and did it in front of my friends, which was a major humiliation.
And would she then say, Jeffrey Walter, don't be a pain, and bring your surname
she
into it
didn't
as well?
do the own pun because that would have bounced back at her, but I think she did have that two-stage warning system.
Yep.
You know.
Okay, so I'm chatting right now, and you are listening, dear friends, to Jeff Payne and Peter Bragg from Behaviour Works Australia about the things we do when we know we shouldn't. I want to delve just a little deeper, like, how can we stop ourselves from doing things that we know we shouldn't? And what defines something we shouldn't do anyway? Is this just a morality question?
Well, that's philosophy, that is. Who makes the rules? Who knows what's right and wrong?
So it's partly this sort of discussion where we recognise and we self-analyse and go, oh, right, you're right, we do things that we shouldn't do. And this is partly the discussion to recognise, there's stuff we do and things we say that we shouldn't. But we have different rules for ourselves and for other people. You know, we keep our phones on, even though we're told, turn your phones off.
Yep.
What if I get that important call? Your call's not important, but mine could be life and death.
Don't look at me when you say my call's not important. I want to ask more about Clive Gibbons on Cheers.
Jeff, we may want to come back here.
Yeah.
We may want to stay friends with
Yeah, I
Sammy
know,
J. But,
I know,
look, mobile phones is a classic, right? So,
Yep.
the serious side of this, I suppose, is, we know that we shouldn't use mobile phones in cars. Mm-hmm. And about 1 in 6 fatal car accidents have something to do with mobile phone.
1 in 6 now, is it?
1 in 6. So the thing about that is, it's a habit. You can't. You just have to know that even though you know it's wrong, you're not going to be able to resist it. So what's the strategy that you might use? Well, some people have talked about put your phone in your glove box so you can't touch it. Use the map directions that are verbal directions, so you don't need to, be fiddling around with it.
Switch on the Do Not Call app, which basically, as soon as the phone is moving more than 9 k's an hour, it turns off and it goes to auto.
So most of the secret of kind of getting under the hood of what's the assumption is to ask yourself, is knowledge the problem here, or is it something else? Is it a habit? Is it the environment? The classic is the chocolate bars at the checkout, right? The environment just makes it almost impossible not to buy the chocolate bar, right?
Yep. Now, to be devil's advocate here, though, you mentioned donuts as well, chocolate, like we talked about these naughty, so-called naughty foods, when of course that's probably, in this day and age, it's all about moderation, isn't it? So donuts, fine, chocolate's fine. It's about however in your own life it's going to fit in to your diet, to your health.
Sure. Look,
That's
if you
right.
can treat that sort of snack food as a treat, absolutely. Fast food as a treat, absolutely. Once a week sort of thing. It's when people go, this is my everyday. That's a normal meal.
Or
for me.
it's that last drink says, Jeff, you don't have to go home yet. It's only 11:30. We're just playing a game of cards.
The wine's open. You're right. We can't let it go off.
Is that what Dr. Carl Kennedy was saying to you on Ramsey Street on Friday?
Yeah. No, actually, no. He was giving me sage advice. Sage advice.
But you're right, Sammy. We'd be robots if we just stuck to the rules all the time. You have to have a little treat here and there. But
Yeah.
I think the thing about knowledge is it's not always about knowledge. And we're often saying to our partners when we work with government and industry, we might say something like, what makes you think that knowledge is the problem here? What makes you think that telling people what to do...
Is that
and
their
if-
first response often? They say, well, just need to educate
it's the
people.
default.
Yeah.
It's the default. It's
Yeah.
basically, let's tell them the right thing to do, and then they'll do it. And there's been millions of dollars
One of the other
wasted on
things
that
I do in the
assumption.
world is I'm on the local council. I'm a councillor. And constantly we have people say, just an education campaign, put a poster up. And you go, that doesn't work. People walk right past the posters. Then you have to have a poster that points to the posters. Say, look at this poster.
So if we accept, and I do, that doesn't work, or that, it's not all about knowledge, how do you then change that?
Well, you might change the environment. So the chocolate bar example, you might say, well, let's not have that there. Let's manipulate the environment and the context so that decision is harder to make.
But
It's
then
not
the
an
chocolate
automatic
bar
thing.
industry is going to come for you. You're going to
Well,
make the
well,
chocolate
there's
industry.
that.
It's funny you should say
That's
that.
systemic. That's systemic. So this is they've realised that if they put fresh fruit and water up at eye level, they will sell more of that than fizzy drinks and chocolate.
So
is
some
it-
of it's manipulating the environment. Sometimes if it's chaotic environments, you might have information reminder systems. So you have the knowledge, but you need a little trigger. Just remember to check that medication dosage. Have you done this?
In the time that we have left, which is only a minute, but
Yeah.
I'm loving this chat. I'm chatting to Jeff Payne, Peter Bragg from Behaviour Works Australia about why we do things, why we don't, and how we can change behaviour. You mentioned also that gyms wouldn't need to exist if we could modify our behaviour. That's an example of people, or everyone wants to exercise, broadly speaking. Everyone
Yep.
wishes they were healthier
Yep.
than we probably are. How does that equate? You're saying that without gyms, if we were better equipped with our behaviour, we would just exercise freely of our own free will?
Well, I'm guessing that gyms compensate for the fact that we don't use our bodies as much as our kind of ancestors did. But the funny thing about gyms is people will take the escalator to get up to do a stepping machine thing. So they'll take a shortcut to do the exercise without realising.
I used to
they
want
could
to
have
park
walked there.
right near the swimming pool. I wanted to park the closest I could be so I didn't have to walk
Yeah.
as far. It's
It
crazy.
makes
efficiency.
sense in one level, but you're realising, but you're compensating for something else and at the next level. So
This
we have
is
these shortcuts.
A little window into all of our souls and our daily lives, listeners. Thank you both so much for coming in this morning. It's great to have people here. And look, I don't know if we're going to change our behaviour just yet, but knowledge is power, isn't it?
Knowledge is power, and knowledge is only part of the
And knowledge is completely ineffectual. Peter Bragg, Jeff Pate, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much.
Sammy.
Jeff and Peter from Behaviour Works Australia coming up after 6:30.